All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Panthers on Tap. You will notice tonight it is just me and Bryson because our pal Curtis is a new dad. Congratulations to Curtis. He's probably very busy right now and doing things that aren't nearly as well. Actually, I was about to call this fun. Bryson, I'm not sure how much fun this is going to be, man. How are you doing tonight?
I could be doing better, man. Obviously, we all know what happened this past weekend, and I'm getting a little sick, so I'm gonna power through and try to get through this awful game to talk about, and hopefully look forward to better things to come this weekend.
So, do you think that it's the Panthers that got you sick, maybe, man? Because I'm starting to think that it's like a viral thing with them, that it just everything within the vicinity they rub off on and everything just goes to hell.
I mean, it's a good possibility, dude. I could have caught it from watching them on TV, and just their
Man,
their pitifulness rubbed off on me. Definite possibility for sure.
yeah, it's difficult. What are you drinking? Are you powering through and having a beer at least tonight?
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Yeah,
yeah,
dude.
I'm sipping on some random one just like right now, but I'm saving this one for when we get into the episode a little bit more. It is from Divine Barrel Brewing in Charlotte, actually, and it's called "When Will Then Be Now." Thought that was very appropriate for this team. When will
Ooh,
2015 be now? When will a winning season be now for the Carolina Panthers? So I figured that was appropriate.
that is a heavy hitter. I like that, man. You pulled one. Well, I typically for the first couple episodes here with you guys, I've been trying to find like really nice, fancy, cool stuff to celebrate. But after that shit show on Sunday, I am just drinking a good old champagne velvet, the trashy little Pilsner beer, because I don't really think that I want to give any more of my high end stuff to the Panthers until they give me something back.
Fair enough,
Um,
man.
I want to see something, man. And you know what? Let's just segue right into it. But before we get into the game, we have something for viewers and listeners. Well, really viewers, because you're going to need to do this in the chat. Um, the Roaring Riot is going to have a kickoff jam at Noda Brewery in Charlotte, North Carolina on Saturday. And it's like an all day event, man. Like this thing goes, I believe it starts at 2:00, 2:30. And I'll just read the description for it. It's a kick off the Panther season with a full day of live music from bands like Moon Taxi, The Nude Party, who, by the way, I am a huge fan of. They're like a really cool rock band from Appalachia. Really, really cool North Carolina band. Simplified is a Charlotte, North Carolina legend. I'm pretty sure I saw them at the old press box, which is now Braswell's. That was a wild time, but we'll get into that in another episode. Cuddy Cutright and more. And you can get autographs and selfies from Panthers legends like Jonathan Stewart, Mike Rucker, Chuba Hubbard. I like to call him Big League Chew. I don't know if it's still Big League. We're going to see how it goes this week. And other players are possible to be there as well. Plus great food, man. Exclusive Noda Brewing beers, such as the Roaring Riot Lager and Tito's Cocktails, the Football Fun Zone, and much more. So we've got an opportunity here tonight to give out a couple of tickets to that event. And when you look at like the cost of these tickets, it's $39 for the lower package. It's called the Music Lovers Pass. Gets you access to all the things that you need to have access to. The Jam Pass gets you a little extra. And then the VIP gets you every single thing you could imagine, plus a couple of drink tickets. You get to kind of rub shoulders with the Panthers legends a little bit more. And you can see up at the top, there is a code. If you do not win the tickets tonight, there is a code for a $5 off if you decide that you do want to go to this jam, which I'll be at. Me and my wife are going. It's a nice Saturday out. It's supposed to be rainy, so I hope that changes. But either way, man, you can't beat good local beer, Panthers fans, and good music. Panthers legends, like I said, Jonathan Stewart, Captain Munnerlyn, Mike Rucker, and Chuba Hubbard. Those are the ones that are confirmed. That's not necessarily the only guys that'll be there. There may be other people from the team. There may be some media members that you follow or wanted to meet. So there's all kinds of things to do here. So Bryson, what I was thinking, let's do a little like giveaway here, and we'll raffle them off, right?
Yeah.
If you're interested in claiming and winning the tickets, what we'll have you do is make a comment that says, let's do this, post kickoff. How about that? That will be, if you make that post or that comment in the chat, I will add your name to a list. And after we run this show for a little bit and give everyone their chance to get their submission in, we'll run a random generator and we'll let the computer pick. I mean, this is the world of AI and stuff like that. That's what we might as well do, right? Look at that. Panther Bow's already in there. Good for you, Panther Bow. Jared, what's up, man? I promise I'm going to try my best to look at the chat tonight. I am trying to write the shit. Bryson, you got to help me out, though, man. Like,
yeah, I got you, dude. I got
keep your eyes peeled for it because you know that I'm going to get on my tangents and I won't be paying attention to shit. All right, so look, that's the rules. We will have this pin right here. This comment with the kickoff. We'll have it starred. Check that out. Put kickoff down on a comment. You'll be entered, and then we will pick a winner for 2 free tickets. It's one for you, one for your +1, or you can meet a hobo in the parking lot and bring him into anything goes. It's the kickoff jam, right? All right, Bryson, let's talk some Panthers football, man. The first thing we want to do here, positives. I feel like Ron Burgundy right now. Positives? Negatives? What do you think, man? What was your initial positive and negative takeaways from this game?
Yeah, digging for the positives, man. It wasn't easy, but to come away with a couple just to start with, I feel like, and I feel justified in feeling this way. The offensive line played well as a cohesive group. First time playing really meaningful football as a whole group, and I feel like that they played good. Ike Mekwonu had some struggles at left tackle, but based off of last season, I feel like he had a really good game coming from that horrible year last year. He was going up against a good edge rusher in Chase Young, who looks very good going into the season, and really makes me regret the Carolina Panthers not signing him. But other than that, Corbett was solid at center. I didn't see any bad snaps from what I saw from him to Bryce Young, so that's a positive for sure. And then, of course, the guards. I mean, they were spectacular, Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. So that's good. That's a positive. I feel like Xavier Legette, the small opportunities that he got, thought he looked really well. And I think that they need to involve him moving forward at a much heavier dosage in this offense, because he looked like one of the few sparks when he touched the ball that they had.
Yeah. Did it bother you at all when you saw like that separation score that came out? He was like one of the lower rookie separation score receivers. Or did you kind of say, hey, look, I watched the game and he looked pretty effective. So separation or not, the guy can play football.
Yeah, no, that didn't bother me whatsoever because, like you said, I watched the game with my own eyes and I saw him get open on a deep ball that could have been a touchdown that Bryce Young missed. I saw him catch the ball and run those out routes and catch it on the sideline. And sure, I wish he would have stayed in on that one and was able to turn upfield and get more yards, but he caught it and looked effective. When the ball was thrown his way. So
nice route for him too, I thought, man.
It was.
Talk about that out route where he kind of like he didn't snap it necessarily, but he had an efficient break on it and he presented a nice target. Shout out to the chat real quick too. We got Mike Hollinger says, "Man, wish I wasn't 4 hours away from Charlotte, or I'd be down to go for sure. You guys have fun." Mike, I wish you weren't 4 hours away too, so you could come, man. We're gonna need all the drinking reinforcements we can get if we're about to usher in this new season of the Panthers.
No kidding.
Justin says, "Keep up the good work, guys. I know covering this team could be hard." Well, I was thinking to myself, Bryson, and tell me if I'm crazy about this. Thank you for the comment and involvement, Justin. I appreciate you, man. And thanks for entering the kickoff raffle. I was thinking to myself, Bryson, and someone said to me the other day, I was talking to somebody and I was responding about Bryce Young, right? Because that's been a huge topic. And I just answered the mailbag questions for Cat Crave that came out today. And I'm telling you what, man, I got on there and like 98 comments on Facebook, first of all, within like the first 3 hours. So I knew I was in hell when I opened that app up. I knew it was a problem because Facebook is also a completely different world than even Elon Musk's X, right?
Yeah.
But so I was talking to somebody and they're like, man, how do you just entertain some of these comments? Like, how do you keep a level head and do it? And I thought to myself, I was like, yeah, how do I do that? But the answer is, I love Panthers football. Bryson, man, I love football, dude. And if I wasn't doing this podcast with you, if I wasn't a contributing writer for Cat Crave, I would still be having these same conversations with random people at Harris Teeters. That's how much I just want to do it, man. I want to talk ball. So as difficult as all of this can be sometimes, I think it's really important to keep in mind it's a game. These guys get paid millions and millions of dollars to play the game. We all don't. And we support with our hardworking money. We anguish ourselves on a weekly basis if you're a Panthers fan. But like, remember that it's fun, or it's supposed to be. And if it's not fun, take a step back. You know what I mean? Come have a champagne velvet beer with me. Have a wonderful Divine Barrel Brewing beer with Bryson. I mean, look, we can hang out and not talk about Panthers. I'd much rather talk about a good Panthers. But
Yeah.
sorry, sidetrack. But that comment got me into it, man.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, man. Of course, it would be more fun to talk about a good Panthers team, and a winning Panthers team. But at the end of the day, I still enjoy talking Panthers football. Even if it is bad, because because I love supporting my local team, and I'm thankful that my state has an NFL team, because not all states do, and some states have gotten it taken away, like St. Louis, the Rams, like out of St. Louis, like those people, those fans. Miss having that. They were extremely disappointed that the team left, and unfortunately, that happened. So I mean, our team isn't good right now. I don't think that's going to be the case forever. We've seen in the past them be good, but we're just going through an unfortunate long lull of pitiful football in Carolina. But I enjoy talking it either way, man.
That's it, man. It's
I,
it's part of it, you know.
yeah, absolutely. And I have one last positive.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't
And
mean to. I cut you off, man, and got on this rambling tangent.
oh no, you're good, man. I like the little tangents. It keeps things interesting. So, the last positive was Mike Jackson. He wasn't some all pro caliber corner out there, but I feel like for a guy that just got here a couple weeks ago, a trade for Michael Barrett, who isn't even on the Seahawks roster anymore, or even on their practice squad. He came in, I thought, played really well, tackled good. I thought, he slid in well at that number 2 corner. That was just the 3 really positives that I took away from the game. I don't know if you had any, but those were the 3 I had.
I did, yeah. Jared, I see yours, and I've got yours up here because I do want to talk about that. That's a really interesting proposition. So I do want to go over that, but I'll give my real quick positives that I take away from it. And Mike Jackson's a good one, Bryson. I like that because the way that you frame that, I think, is really important too. This is a guy that was traded from his team, so they didn't have plans to have him on their roster. He comes here, and not only is he on the 53, not only is he, a depth piece that's a rotational player, he starts as our cornerback too within a couple of weeks of being in the building. And you're right, man, he held his own. I thought that reaction time might be an area where you see him get sharper on some of the plays that weren't even necessarily his coverage. It wasn't his assignment or his responsibility. Specifically, I'm talking about the Foster Moreau touchdown in the back of the end zone. That was just a weird play anyways, to be completely honest. But, Mike Jackson had his back turned. He was guarding his man. I'm not blaming him at all for this. But I think that his instinct, his feel for this defense and where other players are and how they play together, just that cohesion, I think he'll be a little bit quicker on those reactions. So I look forward to that, man, because he was a very physical player. I thought that he played a nice game. Outside of the initial play, the deep touchdown to Rashid Shaheed, I thought that JC Horn played a really nice game, and I don't fault JC for that. But that conversation is a whole nother can of worms that I don't really even want to get into. You can just go on Twitter and you can find that whole can opened wide ass open, and you can read everything for yourself. But I did think that JC looked good. Offensive line, man, let's give some credit to the hog mollies, right?
Yeah.
What did we pine for all last season? Protection, the possibility to make plays. That offensive line is going to be able to do that this year, I think. And that's encouraging for me. I think Robert Hunt caught some flack about the contract size, right? Like $100 million for an interior offensive lineman that dealt with an injury a little bit last year, and that played in a relatively favorable system in that Miami Dolphins offense. Man, he looked like he's worth it, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Negatives, I don't know if anyone noticed this. Bryce Young didn't have the best game. I don't think that Dave Canales had his finest moments. I think that there is nothing but up for him, or at least that's what I'm hoping. I'm also going to make a pact with you right now and with everybody who's listening. I'm not going to say that shit anymore, that it can't get worse or that it's only up from here. I'm going to stop saying that because I think that that's putting out this energy in the world, man, that keeps coming back in Will Smith slapping me across the face. Like I can't keep doing it. I'm going to keep that name out of my mouth. That optimism thing, that part is going to go away. But so yeah, positives and negatives. That's pretty much it for me. I do think Xavier Legette is going to get more involved. I think that he showed that he should be a focal point of this offense. Deontay Johnson's going to have better games. Bryce Young is going to have better games, man. I think that there are things on the horizon that don't show up on the surface, but are possible for this team still. Let's get to a couple of these comments. Let's get to Jared's first, Bryson, and I want to get your opinion on this. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about Canales taking a page out of Wilk's playbook by going 70% run, 30% pass game? Is that an approach that you would be into, Bryson?
100% I would be into that. I think the offensive line is made for that. I think Bryce Young would benefit from that approach heavily. I think that Chuba is the type of running back, like we've talked about last week, who thrives on, contact and then just like kind of building up throughout the game and getting better as the game goes on. I think Miles looked decent as well this past game. I thought when he touched the ball, he looked explosive. So getting him involved, and when Brooks comes back, I think that would be a good approach. And I think that's what Dave Canales had us to believe he was going to be with those comments he made, early on in his tenure in Carolina, that he was going to be stubborn running the ball. And then, unfortunately, the game script this past weekend kind of changed things a little bit, going down 17-0 in the blink of an eye. But yeah, I think that this is what the offense needs to be. Bryce Young off play action, running the ball, keeping the defense honest, making them stack the box, opening up things downfield. I think that's what this team needs, and I would totally be okay with that approach.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think that the Jonathan Brooks point is one that's really still interesting and that gets lost. I know a lot of people don't like that pick. He's an injured running back coming off an ACL, and you took him when we were desperate for impact players right away. I'm not going to argue that that's not trying for patience, right? I understand that. But Jonathan Brooks is a difference maker. And what I did notice in this game, too, you talk about Miles Sanders looking better. I'm a fan of Chuba Hubbard. But I think that it's fair to say that even with Miles Sanders looking better than he did last year, and Chuba Hubbard being a guy that I do like, neither of them are I'm scared of those players type of running backs. They're just not. They're not difference makers at the position. They're also not 3-down players. They both have their deficiencies where they can't be on the field for that long, right? For every single snap. Miles Sanders, I saw him a couple times in protection, pass pro. It's not his forte, but he's a pass catcher. So you want him to be your third down guy. Chuba plays with a lot more effort when it comes to pass pro, in my opinion. But historically, his pass catching has been an issue. Now, look, he's working his ass off on the jugs machine every single practice for the past 2 years straight, and it has improved. So maybe he should get a little bit more of a look, but that's why they bring in Jonathan Brooks, man. He's the bell cow. Yeah. Canales did say he wanted to be stubborn with the run. Difficult to do when you're down 30-3 at the half, but I will say this about that. They weren't down 30-3 in the first 5 minutes of the game. They were down 10-0. They were down 17-0. They could have still committed a little bit more to the run, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think taking some of that pressure off of Bryce Young would have been extremely beneficial. So, Jared, to answer your question, maybe 70-30 is a little bit high for me. But we'll get into the statistically speaking segment again this week, and you'll see how much we passed it this past week. And I think if you flipped it, I'd be okay with it. I'll leave that little teaser there when we see how much we passed it this week. I think if you flip that, I'd be pretty happy with it. Thank you, Jared, for that question. And real quick, since we have a whole lot more people in here than when we first did the announcement about the kickoff jam raffle, we have 2 tickets that we are raffling off tonight for the Roaring Riot kickoff jam for free. About $40 value for each ticket. You got the infographic right here. You could take a look at everything that it offers. It's a really fun event on Saturday at No Doubt Brewing. You can have autographs, conversations with Panthers legends, really good music. The Nude Party, man, one of my favorite bands. Like, not even just saying that just because they're part of this lineup here. I literally listen to them in the car all the time. My 6-year-old kid will tell you how much I listen to the Nude Party. He fucking hates me sometimes because I listen to it that often. But the rules on how to get this to happen for you, all you have to do is in the chat, comment #kickoff, and I will add your name into a random generator, and we will draw a winner towards the end of the show. Let's get to a couple more of these comments before we get to the next slide, if you're good with that, Bryson. First of all, man, the chat, Thank you, chat. Y'all are on fire, dude. Look at y'all going crazy already tonight, man. If this is a byproduct of losing, I can't wait to see what happens when we start winning some football games, man. C3 Anthony, first of all, what up, Ant? How you doing, man? Can't blame the O-line this year. They look good. My main issue is not even starting the game with a simple run. Get Bryce's confidence up. He has that look in his eyes like I have seen from Darnold. And then in the next one, he says, where he's lost. I don't necessarily disagree with that look. And it's something that Bryson and I were speaking about a little bit, even actually off camera before we started the show tonight. If Bryce isn't a confident quarterback, I'm not sure he's a threatening NFL quarterback. I think that his it factor is one of the things that separates him and compensates for some of the physical things that maybe he doesn't possess. Bryson, you feel any way about that?
No, yeah, I mean, I agree. We're going to get into it, I think, in the next slide, but it's unfortunate. If Bryce isn't playing with confidence, I'm not sure if he's an NFL quarterback. And this is something that we saw throughout the time in Alabama. He was a very confident quarterback, and yeah, he was in a system with all 5 stars surrounding him, and probably the best coach in college football history coaching him. But he's got to get that confidence back, and hopefully that starts this weekend, and we'll see where that takes us. But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't have that, then I agree he's looking lost.
And while we're on that subject too, because there's something that reminded me of it. Shout out to Damian Parson, who came on the space that Bryson and I were on the other night and said something very similar. He echoed a very similar sentiment about how insulated Bryce Young was at Alabama, but not taking away from Bryce Young's ability still. Bryce Young was a good ball player. He made plays that not that many other guys are going to be able to make, but his supporting cast and the coaching staff that he had there were extremely beneficial, man. And they're part of the equation that you just can't ignore. We got a quarterback school drop Bryce video. Footwork still terrible. Hey, look, you know what rubbed me the wrong way a little bit? Dave Canales came out and said how happy he was with the pre-snap operation, with the footwork that they had been working. He's like, yeah, I think he did pretty good. I think it was really good. You watch the tape, man, and it's just not the case. I haven't seen the quarterback school yet. JT O'Sullivan is absolutely fantastic. The way that he can break down the intricacies and nuance, not of just the position, but of the game in general, is really good for novice, expert fans, anybody to check out, because it gives a great perspective. So I look forward to watching that. But I did think that the footwork is still a problem, and I think that the Canales phrasing things in a honky go dory kind of way is going to get old kind of quick if there's visual evidence disputing that.
Absolutely. And talking about what's going on with Bryce, I agree. And I watched the JT O'Sullivan quarterback school video, and it's apparent to him, it's apparent to anybody else with eyes, that Bryce is playing on his toes. He's thrown off his back foot. His dropbacks do not look like any other quarterback in the NFL's dropbacks, with like kind of hopping back and just not looking confident.
Yeah, the weird pacing of it too, right? Like some of them,
weird.
he's like slow walking and not even like full steps. It's like these little half steps. Yeah.
It's not common, and that's not anything different from what we saw on the tape from when he was at Alabama. That's the same exact thing that we saw, but it was working at Alabama, so it wasn't an issue. It's not working so far in the NFL, and it is an issue. Part of an issue of a couple of things, I feel like, currently. So we'll see if that continues to improve. Apparently Canales was happy with it. Like you said, I didn't see really much changes from last season, looking at the tape from last year into last week's game, in regards to that aspect, but apparently Canales did, or he's, like you said, just being hunky-dory and trying to keep the confidence up that we don't really see on the film for Bryce.
And I don't fault him entirely for that, right? Like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to be overly pessimistic about this, because I'm not. Yeah. I still like Dave Canales. I still believe in Bryce Young, but this is a different situation for me than last season. All of the tropes that we were hit with last season, they literally answered or said that they answered, right? The front office made a concerted effort for alignment, bringing a guy that wants to work with Bryce, will tailor an offense to Bryce. Last year, remember, we hired the coaches before we had the quarterback. This time we had the quarterback and hired the coaches. So they did this intentionally to build around Bryce Young. And some of the things that I saw in week 1 were just kind of perplexing because they didn't match that energy. And I want what they say to be what I see. That's just me. Call me crazy. Maybe it's a witch hunt. This is old days in Salem. Maybe I need to be tied to a stake or something. But if you tell me something, I want to be able to also point it out on film and say, that's that shit they were talking about. Look at that.
Agreed. 100%.
Zach Griffin, thanks for the comment, man. I think Bryce experienced PTSD from last year. Hopefully Bryce watches film and realizes the line is better and has receivers getting open. I hope Dave reinforces that as well. I like that comment. I like that sentiment that maybe Bryce does need to just see it in front of him, not while he's in action, but maybe that in hindsight, looking at it and saying, shit, I could have stepped into the pocket. Like there was an actual area for me to step up into, throw off of my front foot instead of my back foot if I'm going to be on the move, and drop one of my little in the bucket pinpoint accurate passes that I've become known for. So I like that. That's a good one, man.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's really the route I was going to go with, moving forward in this episode was it's so apparent that he doesn't trust his teammates right now, which is unfortunate because everything around him has improved, in my opinion. We talked about the offensive line. We've talked about the weapons. Jatavion Sanders is probably an improvement of the tight end group that we had last year as well. So maybe he's right. Maybe Zach's right. Bryce needs to see it on the tape, be reinforced through the coaching staff. But yeah, I mean, he's got to get the confidence in himself, and he's got to get the confidence and trust in his teammates for this thing to work.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well said. All right. The next questions are, what do you think about Bryce's performance and why are you allergic to running the ball? So I think that leads us right into this next slide. What is going on with Bryce Young? Bryson, why don't you kick us off here, man? All right. Can we do like a couple of questions that we both hit on and then kind of do like our takes around those questions?
Sure.
What is your confidence level, 1 to 10, about Bryce Young going forward? And what would you rate his individual performance in week 1?
So is one
probably inverse those. Yeah, probably inverse those. You probably want to give the rating that he did this week and then talk whatever you want to say in support of that. Then give me that other number, man, while I try to figure my shit out.
So 10 is like extremely confident. 1's not at all. I'm
yes,
assuming.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so and same thing with the rating scale for this game. So for this past week, I would give the game probably like a 4 for Bryce Young's performance. There were some things on tape that we all saw the corner come unblocked, the guy that got 3 sacks as a corner, which is crazy to think about. That Bryce Young was just like, there's nothing he could have done in that situation. He could have identified the blitz, sure, but in that situation, unblocked, the routes were not keen to, there wasn't a hot route, so there was no outlet for him to get rid of the ball. He had to take the sack. He didn't fumble. That's a good thing, right? We saw a couple of those last year. So, but I can't go without saying there were a lot of situations where it was there and Bryce missed it, and I think that happened more times than not in this game, unfortunately. So I would give it probably like a 4 in his performance last week, and then in my confidence moving forward with Bryce, I still believe in the guy, man. I just can't give up hope because I'm just not that kind of person. I think we've seen flashes from Bryce Young that shows us why he was the number 1 pick from last year. I think when you look across the league, which we talked a little bit about it before we hopped on here, offenses across the league struggled in week 1. There were 2 quarterbacks that threw for over 250 yards in the whole entire NFL in week 1. You look at quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, who struggled, Aaron Rodgers, who didn't look that great in Monday Night Football. I mean, offenses struggled across the league. Bryce Young is in a new system with a new head coach. I'm not trying to make excuses for him because last week was an inexcusable game for him. Like he should not look that bad coming in as the number 1 overall pick in the second year with a better offensive line, better weapons. But I think when you look at the totality of the circumstances from everyone across the NFL, and the offense is struggling. I think a little bit of grace is need to be given to Bryce Young. And for me moving forward, my confidence in him is probably about a 6, maybe like 6.5, because I think that he can
That
still.
dropped for you, right? Like that is a lower number than you would have given me before week one's game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before week 1, I was probably like 8 or 9. But when you go back and you watch the tape from week 1, he's making mistakes that he wasn't making last year. So I
Yeah.
didn't see progression week 1. I saw regression from what we saw last year, which is very disheartening and a red flag. I mean, a yellow flag, possibly red flag for Bryce Young and his growth in the NFL and for this team. So right now, I'd say probably like a 6.5 moving forward. Next week is a big week for him. Next week is his most important game of his NFL career. Coming off of the worst performance of his NFL career, can he bounce back? Can he look better? Can he get that confidence? It's really important for his coaching staff to put him in a situation to succeed. And I think that they did on a couple of occasions give him opportunities to make plays, and he just wasn't able to do that last week. Again, they need to get short, easy, quick passes for him this week. Get him in a rhythm. He's a streaky quarterback. When he's on, he's on, and when he's off, we saw what happened last week. So I think right now 6.5 moving forward. Just pray that he gets that confidence back. The footwork isn't going to change, and I think that's just something we're going to have to live with. He's a toesy quarterback. He's going to be playing on his toes. He's going to be throwing off his back foot. He's going to be throwing jump passes over incoming, defensive linemen. So that's not going to change. He's been that way since high school. So I think that's something we're going to have to live with, and he's going to have to make that work to be a successful quarterback in the NFL and for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that he can keep those quirks in his
Yeah.
footwork, right? He can keep those elements, and he's going to. You're right. That's the way he's always played the position. That's the way that a player of his stature is likely to play the position. But the footwork that can be amended is the part that I want to see put into place, because what we saw in training camp and even preseason was a deliberate difference in how quickly he was getting to the back of his drop, which I know was talked about a lot last year, but it was a different drop entirely. It was not the slow walk back. It was a quick shuffle almost of the feet to get him into position to fire. That married with that 2.7 original concept, we know that 2.7 seconds isn't the only amount of time it's going to take to get a throw off, right? Like, we understand, we read the terrific articles by the Panther staff writers and stuff about the second play, which I think is such a critical component for Bryce Young, because he's not a conventional quarterback and he's not going to do conventional things. You don't want him to do conventional things. Like, you don't draft Bryce Young to be Kirk Cousins. That's not what he is. That's not what makes him magic. And so part of me sees, like, all right, so I'm a big movie buff guy, right? And in the Step Brothers movie with Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, terrific little slapstick comedy. They wear these tuxedos when they go into a job interview, right? And then Will Ferrell or John C. Reilly, I think it's John C., he farts. And Seth Rogen is the one who's giving the interview to him. And he's like, you know what? Now the tuxedos are kind of fucked up. That's the way that I'm starting to feel about this whole idea about, like, hey, look, we can fix him. We can do this. I almost want it to be less hands-on with Bryce Young. I'm not saying that there's too many voices in his ear this year, because I think that that's entirely different. But maybe some of this strict rules, and you talked about it a little bit earlier, Bryson, about, or maybe this was even before we started the show. I'm starting to get a little bit foggy with it. I'm on beer too. But we talked about, like, how much leadway does he have at the line of scrimmage to change calls, to change protections. Changing protections he can do. That's not a question that I'm asking. I know that he's allowed to change protections. There's no head coach of the National Football League that is going to tell his quarterback, hey, man, if you see shit coming to you, you got to take it. Like, this is part of your thing. You got to eat it. Like, no one is saying that, especially to their really small quarterback. But the ability to change the calls and to flip play sides or whatever it may be, right? I want to know what that is. And today, when Joe Person, I believe it was Joe that asked Dave Canales in the presser, asked him that question, he got a pretty cagey little response of, I don't want to talk too much about the schematics and give away too much information, because we know opposing teams and personnel watch suppressors. I don't think you're giving away national security secrets by saying that you allow your quarterback to make internal mental changes on terminology that the other team doesn't know. Joe Person didn't ask Dave, hey, man, will you tell me what the call is if he's going to change to a quick slant on the inside slot? And I'm not trying to do an impersonation of Joe. It just kind of happened, like with the slow talking. No offense. I didn't mean it that way. I just have listened to a lot of pressers. So like when I get that Joe Person in my head, I know exactly what it sounds like. But he's not asking that. So I would love to know what Bryce is allowed to do, because Baker Mayfield also came out and said that he wasn't allowed to change a lot of the calls in that Tampa offense last year. We'll see, man. As far as what do I think about Bryce Young and what's going on with him, I mean, you nailed it. I really just think that there is make or break seemed like such an awful way to put it at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Because I think that it was dismissive of the good things he did last season to say that. I think that it made it almost seem like, he was trash all season. And to me, that's dismissive and it's short-sighted, because it means that you didn't actually look at anything other than a box score and surface level broadcast game. But also there's a part of me that's like, fans don't have to be this deep, intricate analysis aspect of the football game. Why are we expecting other fans to sit there and be like, yeah, but did you see the way that he progressed from his first read to his third in a matter of 2 seconds? Like, that's not something that matters to people. What matters to people is wins and losses. What matters to people is moving the ball across the field and completing passes. So I can understand the frustration here, man. I really don't blame anybody. But I think that there are plenty of things that are out there. I haven't watched the quarterback school thing yet, but I've done my breakdown and some cut-ups of this game. Bryce wasn't the worst quarterback that he could have been. This was his worst performance as a professional, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But was he the worst version of himself that he could have been? I absolutely don't think so. I know that might sound problematic too, because it sounds like I'm saying he can get worse. Like this could definitely still go downhill,
yeah.
Right? But what I mean by that too is that if this was his worst and he still managed to insulate himself from making more critical mistakes or from missing throws that he didn't. I mean, he hit some nice throws, man. He made some really nice anticipatory throws, and that's his superpower. So he still showed it. So I'm not out on him. I would give him a 3.5 on this week's performance. A lot of it is the mental confidence and just being rattled, because I think that that's where I'm most surprised with him. My confidence level going forward, would you give him a 6?
6.5.
6.5. Damn it, man. See, look, that's that little hook right there on it. That threw me off, man. I'm gonna go with you. 6.5. Go with the same number. Because I still think that he could be a really good ball player, and I still think that we did the right things as an organization to give him the chance to succeed. I think we all just got curb stomped week 1. Yeah. All of us, man. Yeah. Fans, head coach, offensive coach, defensive coach. And Giro Evero was our idol last year, what he did with that defense, right? They gave up a 50 burger almost. That can't happen again, man. It just can't happen. Price can't be this bad. Dave Canales has to be a little bit better. I'm on a tangent again. Let me get off of it. So we'll remove this real quick. Look, we're about 40 minutes in. We're going to hit a commercial here from our partner at BetStamp, and we'll take, stay with us about 30 seconds. You can see right down there at the bottom of your screen, the hashtag kickoff. If you're just joining the show, we're giving away 2 tickets to the Roaring Riot Kickoff Jam this Saturday at No Doubt Brewery. 2 free tickets, $40 face value for each ticket. Bring yourself, bring a friend, bring your mom, bring your wife, bring your, side piece, whatever you want to do, man. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell. It's the Kickoff Jam. It's like Vegas. Anything goes, and it stays there at No Doubt. Real quick, let's get a little 30-second ad from our sponsor, our partner, and we'll be right back with the show.
Exciting news, Panther fans. I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link.
It's discouraging for me that we did our first favorite bet segment last week.
Yeah.
And not a single one of us hit. and to be fair, man, I think I had the most egg on my face because I took an individual player to go over 58.5, and the team rushing number was 58. So that one stung, man. You want to talk about chap your ass. That one did it, man. Like we got our segment coming up later in the show though, and I feel better about it. You know, one of the reasons I feel better about mine, Bryson?
Didn't take a Panther.
I did not take a Panthers bet this time.
I did.
I know you did. I know. And actually, I kind of love it too. Yours is actually really adventurous, man. I like that. Let's get a couple more of these chat comments real quick before we get into the statistical speaking segment, and we do a little bit more of the deep dive. We've got Zach Griffin says, the one thing I'll defend Bryce is that I don't care who your quarterback is, but if your defense gives up points in 9 straight drives, man, let's say that one more time before I finish this comment. If your defense gives up points on 9 straight drives, you aren't going to win. He's got to have better starts of the game, though. Bryson, your immediate takeaway from that hammer of a comment.
I mean, it's so true. We saw Caleb Williams go out week 1, throw for 90 yards, and they won the game. Special teams for the Bears played well. Their defense played amazing, and they ended up getting a win versus the Titans. Bryce Young throws for more yards, of course, some interceptions, but they lose by 37 points. You know, it is a complimentary game. You know, and it's always been, and it's always been like not complimentary in Carolina. You know, either the defense plays really well and the offense sucks, or the offense figures things out and then the defense doesn't play well, or vice versa with special teams or whatever it may be. You know, it's never been like a full team effort in Carolina, or it has been in the past, but it hasn't been for 6-7 years in Carolina. And that's what's really kind of hampered them getting wins, unfortunately. So I agree with Zach 100%. The defense was probably the most disappointing part for me in this game, because I did not expect the defense to struggle this bad. I expected them to have some regression with the pieces they lost for sure, but not to the point where it looked like you could put Kansas's defense out there versus the Saints and they would play better, or UNC or Duke's defense out there, and maybe they would have got a stop in the first 9 drives. Unlike Carolina.
Are you getting carried away right now, Bryson?
I mean, it was bad, dude. It was bad. Like the defense was just non-existent.
Yeah, no. And I would, if we weren't already down, I might try to jab you a little bit about your boy Josie Jewell, because I thought that he had a rough start, man.
He did.
And I look, he's a Panther. I'm not rooting for his downfall, dude. I want him to pick it up and be terrific. But him and Jordan Fuller were probably my 2 biggest disappointments of the defense, because I think that so much was sold about their familiarity coming in here with Evero's system and how they can hit the ground running, and like they would get the best versions of themselves by playing here in Carolina.
Yeah.
And I think that we got the opposite in week 1. To be fair, everybody kind of gave the opposite in week 1. There's maybe 3 or 4 individual performances outside of the offensive line that I would look at and say, nice game, right? Yeah. So that was just a little dig at you. We could have that conversation throughout the year, though, because, you know, I'm a big Frankie Louvu guy, and it hurt my soul to hear people say that we had an upgrade. JJ, I'm looking at you, that we had an upgrade by going to Josie Jewell over Frankie Louvu.
Hey, I said it too, dude, man.
I know.
I'm not giving up hope. I think, you know, like with a lot of things on this roster and on this team as a whole, it's going to take time to get comfortable and for things to start looking decent, looking competent. Unfortunately, you know, we expect them to look competent coming out week 1 as an NFL team, people that get paid millions of dollars to play a game. But unfortunately, that's just not the case in Carolina. That's not the expectations, apparently, in Carolina. So,
right.
So yeah, I mean, it's going to take time. And but one other guy that I felt like was going up against one of the easiest tackles he's going to go up against this season is Jadeveon Clowney. Trevor Penning is not a good tackle. He has struggled mightily in New Orleans, and Trevor Penning put Jadeveon Clowney in a box. And I didn't hear his name mentioned once in the broadcast. So
what's interesting too is sorry. Do you want to finish your thought first, and then I'm going to piggyback off of it?
No, I mean that's pretty much it. I was just disappointed to not see Clowney embarrass Penning because I figured that was a good matchup for him, and nothing came with it.
That was supposed to be like the jump start for him, right? Is it like there was questions about how much can he do individually when he doesn't have the complementary pieces like the Justin Mbaduke at Baltimore last season in the Mike McDonald system, which shout out to Mike McDonald because damn it, those Seahawks defenders were flying around and playing some tough ball. But the thing about Jadeveon and that Trevor Penning matchup that I wasn't as sold that he was the one that I was looking at. Trevor Penning struggles against like really fast feet is what he struggled with to match that, to mirror that, because he's clunky. Like he is better suited probably on that right side. They drafted him to be a left tackle, but from a mechanical standpoint and from an agility standpoint for him and getting low and matching in his counter moves, he's not good with speed and quickness. That's not really Jadeveon's forte. It's not that Jadeveon's bad at it, right? But he's not Brian Burns.
Yeah.
And I think that a player of Brian Burns' archetype, not Brian Burns specifically, but that mold of a pass rusher, I think gives Trevor Penning more fits than a Jadeveon Clowney who wants to go power to speed, right? I think that if he gets his paws on you, he's a strong guy too. He can thwart that initial approach. But yeah, I'm with you though that I thought that overall we were going to see something. We'll get into this next segment too with the stats about that pass rush against this makeshift outside of the offensive line for the Saints, I guess is a polite way of saying it.
Yeah.
Confidence for Justin is very low on Bryce right now, but also on that defense. Either way, it's our team, so we got to hope for the best. No doubt, man. Zach has been on fire with these comments, by the way. Shout out to Zach Griffin. My confidence is at 7. You don't fall into a Heisman on accident. Man, I love that. Look at him. You don't fall into a Heisman on accident. Well, but there are Heisman Trophy winners that didn't work out. So I'm going to hold a little applause there. The Panthers have to truly put Bryce in the best position to succeed and call plays to his strengths. Bingo. Bryce is the guy, y'all. Talk to him, Joe. I like that blue-eyed Panther logo you got there too, man. Fire. Kirk Pittman. Did y'all see the Nick Scott hip wiggle celebration in the end zone? Yes, after an incomplete pass when we were already down 20+. Man, I understand individual plays where you make a hell of a play. You get pretty jacked up about it, man. Like that adrenaline runs. The scoreboard isn't even really in your mind after an individual rep like that. But I'm with you 100% that I saw a couple times where players were feeling themselves after getting the game handed to them right away on a silver platter, right? Like you got kicked in the teeth and you still said, look at my beautiful smile. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like J. Cole's got the song Crooked Smile. This wasn't one of those positive uplifting things. Now you got kicked in the mouth and you should have kept your mouth closed for the rest of the day. The one player that I'll highlight here that didn't do that probably had the ability to do it on multiple individual reps, Iku Leota.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that Iku Leota came out there and handled his business, and he was all business. When he made his sack, when he made a couple of tackles for loss, he got up, man, and he almost like he was thinking about celebrating, and then he just ate it. It was like, nah, dude, we're getting worked. Like, I'm getting back to the line. I'm getting back with my boys, and we're going to try to do this. Shout out Iku Leota because I really do think that is a ball player, man. I'm not saying that he's going to be like an all-pro player or anything by that kind of caliber, but that's a football player that I want to see on this football team for a while, man. He's got that fire to him. What else we got here? Bo, not enough iron sharpening iron in preseason games. Shit. Who you telling? What is it? The mayor of in The Wire? She. Right? Like that's exactly how I feel about that, Panther Bo. Kirk with another one, should have come out running anyway and not passing for a snap. That's the second time we heard that, and this is the second time that I agree with it, man.
Yep.
Leota did play very well. Should get the start this week instead of DJ. It was interesting. Thank you, Kirk. I appreciate you and agree. It was interesting to hear Canales too say something today in the presser about he thought that DJ Johnson made a statement with his play this week, and said that it was good. Said it was a good statement. I'm not sure I saw it. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
If he made a statement, I don't think it's the one that Dave Canales is inferring that he made. Anyways, let's move on.
It wasn't on the field. It wasn't on the field. It must have been in the locker room after the game or something.
he must have been quite boisterous at his cubby because he didn't make the statement on the field. Yeah. Shout out DJ Johnson, man. Have a bounce back game, bud. All right. Statistically speaking, one of my favorite. I love doing this, man, because it starts to highlight a little bit and you get to go into it. We'll go a little bit quicker here. But Bryson, why don't you get us started off with the Los Angeles Chargers offense?
Yeah, if you blow it up for me there. Thank you, sir. So Chargers offense. These are stats from this year. Ricky, compiled this together for us here on Panthers on Tap. Stats from this year under this new coaching staff. So it's just from 1 week. Obviously, last week they played the Raiders. We all know where the Raiders are at as a team, so take it with a grain of salt. But this offense, I feel like kind of came into the season, this Chargers offense, probably a little bit down. Justin Herbert, good quarterback, but who's he throwing the ball to? Running wise, they lost Eckler, brought in J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, but a lot of question marks. So last week they scored 22 points. So they're at 22 points per game, 16th in the league. 316 yards per game, so they were 13th. They did have a hell of a game rushing the ball. 140 yards or 140 PYPC at 23rd in the league, and then 176 rushing yards per game at 5th. So like I said, they did run the ball. J.K. Dobbins was very efficient running the ball, which scares me, especially with the loss of Derek Brown. So at 5.2 passing yards per play at 21st, weren't super deadly, throwing the ball deep or anything like that. But Justin Herbert is a hell of a quarterback, and that still is a concern. And then 6.5 rushing yards per play, second in the league. So this is a team that is going to come in and play some bully ball. We know that offensive line I almost said San Diego, in LA is going to run the ball down your throat, and that is going to be the game plan. I have no doubt. I don't know, Ricky, if just a side note, if you saw Jim Harbaugh in his presser talking about what he saw on tape that impressed him about the Carolina Panthers. But
I did not. Please divulge.
Yeah, he didn't have much to say. Basically said that he really likes the coaching staff, Dave Canales. He talked about Tracy Smith. He talked about Ejiro Evero. And then he was like, yeah, they just got really good players over there. They play hard. That's pretty much all. That's all he had to say.
That's the most I wear Dockers khakis, so I'm going to say something polite kind of answer I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but I mean, I can't blame them. So they ran 54 plays, which is 24th in the league, and they passed the ball on 50% of the plays, which was 19th.
Isn't that wild too? Like, look at the balance. 50% of the time they're passing, 50% of their rushing, but then look at the disparity on the yards per game that they, as far as like the ranks, right?
Yep.
You touched on like the passing yards per play. That makes sense to me. They got Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson that really hasn't panned out much. Joshua Palmer, right? Yep. I mean, they're a quick hit team. They're not a stretch the field, attack you deep, and burn you with elite weapons kind of guys. This next slide real quick, Bryson. I'm going to keep you up because, or actually, we're going to go back down because we got to get the full screen on. Let me hide this thing. But going back into that, the passing, the 50% passing and the 50% rushing. This stat over here to the far right is what really caught my eye, though. They only executed play action concepts 11.1% of the time. That's 30th in the league in the first week. I would have thought that with the success of the run game, they might have had a couple more opportunities in the play action game. Do you think that's something that we could see them do against the Panthers this week?
Honestly, no, because if that run game's working, why go away from it? If you're averaging what was
that
it,
sucks to hear.
Yeah, if you're averaging 6.5 yards a carry or whatever it was on that other slide, you know,
Yeah, 6.5. Yeah.
why go away from it? It's working, and you know, if you don't have to play action and God forbid, you know, throw it to a receiver and the ball gets picked or the receiver fumbles, like, I mean, if it's broke, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? And I could see that's probably what they were doing in that game versus the Chargers. Their running backs were efficient as hell, and their offensive line was on a roll. So, I mean, yeah, Jim Harbaugh is just that coach, man. He's gonna run the ball. He is not gonna go away from it. Like what Dave Canales wanted us to believe going into week 1 that he was gonna be stubborn on the ball. That's Jim Harbaugh, and we're gonna see that, man. If in some alternate universe where the Carolina Panthers rush defense is playing stout and, you know, they're not hitting those rushing plays at 6.5 a pop, then maybe we see some play action. But I think they're just going to hand the ball off and just
That's a
run
great
it down
point,
our throats, man.
That's a great point. They're going to make you prove that you can stop it. And they're still going to be effective enough, right, that they could keep that open as a viable option. But if you can't stop it, why even chance it, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about the effectiveness of the running back. Let's look at this left-hand column right here on the offensive keys. 4 rushes of 10-plus yards in 1 week. That's 11th best in the league. J.K. Dobbins was a big part of that, man. Like that. I will say this, dude. I'm not rooting for the opponent, Bryson, because that's not the way that I'm wired inside.
Yeah.
But shout out to J.K. Dobbins, man, because what a good story for him to come out there and just kind of have a game his first week after dealing with just some of the most tumultuous injuries and just shit luck that I've seen from a really good player in recent history. 25.9% team run stuffed rate. That's 27th. They weren't stopped. You know what I mean? Like their offensive line got pushed. It generated yardage for the running backs. And then the running backs still did their job afterwards. We'll talk about that too with their yards after contact. I believe that J.K. Dobbins averaged 8.3 yards per attempt after contact.
Jesus.
8.3. Or 83 total. Like that's nuts, man. That is absolutely nuts. 2.51 rushing yards per before contact. 3rd best in the league. That's what I was just alluding to. And you see the big guy over here. That's rookie Joe Alt. They call him Joe, what is it? Control Alt Delete, Joe Alt Delete, because he didn't let Max Crosby even get a whiff of Justin Herbert's pregame cologne. Like he kept him cleaner than a damn Fabuloso bottle. I mean, it is insane that this rookie, this dancing bear out of Notre Dame, who, by the way, there's a guy named Ricky Raines, go by Ricky Bo Body, that did a big board, and Joe Alt was his number 3 overall player. So, like, he's a good ball player. It's not a surprise to some of us. 1 sack allowed for the Chargers offense. That's tied for the best. They only allowed 1 sack, and that was against Max Crosby and the Raiders. That gives me a little bit of concern when we saw Jadeveon get kind of stonewalled by Trevor Penning. Joe Alt is a much better ball player than Trevor Penning, in my estimation. Yeah. So that makes me a little bit nervous. They did allow 12 quarterback pressures, but that is only good for 28th in the league as far as the quarterback pressure rate. So they were not letting a lot of people disrupt Justin Herbert. They had 80. Here's a silver lining for us, okay? 80 yards after catch for the team. And that's what I alluded to earlier with Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnson. Ladd's going to get the ball, and Ladd made a really nice move on his touchdown catch to get open and get into the end zone. Couple misses that he forced on the defenders. But from a technical aspect, he's going to get open, and he's going to secure the catch. The afterwards isn't necessarily what he was heralded for. It's getting open and presenting the target. And that's where Herbert's terrific too, because he's going to throw an accurate ball and get to him. But Quentin Johnson doesn't offer a whole lot in that realm. I don't know what Evero's going to do here. We saw Evero's proclivity to run cover 3 and zone.
Yeah.
JC Horn's got to start being deployed in a man-to-man manner, Bryson. Like, I truly believe that when you have a shutdown corner, which I believe JC to be, I think you remove either a side or a player, right? I would like to see him remove players because I think that puts a lot of pressure on quarterbacks to make the right secondary decisions. If you remove a premier target, they're still going to look that way. They're still going to go through the progressions of the way that the play is designed. But if he is seatbelt action all day, that quarterback's got to make the right decision. And he's got to make it pretty quick. I would like to see that pressure be put on the opponent, to be completely honest. 3.6 yards average target separation, middling, right about in the middle of the league. That makes sense too, because I think the Lad McConkey's probably one of the only ones that was really benefiting that. Bryson, why don't you take us through this defense real quick?
Yeah, just one note about that offensive line. Shout out to Bradley Bozeman, man. Apparently
yeah.
he's settling in pretty nice over there in LA.
Didn't we talk about that? Did we talk about that on like the prediction or whatever when we were talking about this game that Bradley, DJ Chark, and Hayden Hurst were coming back?
Yeah,
I feel like we did. But we also mentioned that they were going to be in a power gap scheme on the offensive line as opposed to a wide zone, outside zone scheme. So yeah.
So shout out to him, man. I'm happy to see him doing well out there in LA, but hopefully he has a bad game this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully they go home with some sadness. But shout out to him and his family, man. I do hope that they're doing well and happy.
Yeah. So, all right, the defense for the Chargers. Again, week 1 versus the Raiders. 10 points per game, tied second in the league. Oh man, I wonder who that other team that scored 10 points was. But so the defense, did have a good game, albeit against Gardner Minshew, but 296 yards per game, which is 15th, middle of the pack. Passing yards per game, 25th in the league at 225. And then they allowed 71 rushing yards last week, which was 4th in the league. Allowed 6.1 passing yards per play, 18th, and 3.2 rushing yards per play, tied second. So the defense played well. I started Zamir White in a couple of fantasy leagues. Didn't do shit for me.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Against this, this defense has pieces. It absolutely does, with Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, corners not too
Asante Samuel Jr.
Yeah, that's correct. That's right. Asante
they actually have a nose tackle too. Go figure. What a wild concept here, Bryson. They have a nose tackle for their defensive front. Puna Ford, who was absolutely outstanding.
So solid defense, man. It's not going to be an easy day for this offense, but 59 plays, 19th in the league, and then 62.7 pass, which was 8th in the league. So, yeah, Carolina's going to have their hands full for a bounce-back game. This is not I feel like a lot of fans, like, going into the season kind of wrote this off as an easier game in the schedule for Carolina. Maybe looking at it a little bit different now from what we saw last week from this team, but this Chargers team is a very good team, and it's a very good coach team with Jim Harbaugh, who was essentially begging to be the coach in Carolina, but we went elsewhere. So this is going to be a very good opportunity for Carolina, for sure, to bounce back and look like a competent team, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I'm with you. What I was going to say about the defense too is they're going to give you effort. And that tracks across the entire team for a Harbaugh team, right? But that effort can give you problems, because when you're counting on somebody to be tired or you're counting on somebody to be in a disadvantageous situation, that's not the mentality that Harbaugh instills in his players. I don't know if you saw the post game in the locker room with Harbaugh, but he literally said these words, man, where he said, there's not a time where you're going to get better this season than between week 1 and week 2. And I truly believe that. Yeah. That's scary. I mean, that's scary because they didn't play bad in week 1 with a brand new coaching staff, with a brand new surrounding cast of players. And they came out and they played pretty good ball against a scrappy Raiders team. The Raiders aren't good, man. I don't think they're a good football team. But they're scrappy, dude. They take on the same mentality of their coach, right? Yeah. Antonio Pierce, man, he gets some fire going on him. He's similar in vein of Gerard Mayo, where he's a first-year coach, and I know he was interim, but he's a first-year head coach. but he's not far removed from being a player. And he's not far removed from being a player at a position where he's a leader on the field. So to me, that's always a dangerous person to be going against. And Harbaugh and his Chargers did really well against it. And again, I want to reiterate the Poona Ford love because, man, he had a really good game. And that is going to be something that is going to be critical for us with Austin Corbett and Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis on that interior. They're going to have to handle that interior presence because Icky being left alone on an island with whether it's Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa, right? No, it's Joey.
It's Joey.
It's Joey. Sorry, I can't forget. They both wear the same red hats in the offseason, so it really just trips me up. Sorry, that was not my finest. But I think that if you put either one of them on the outside against Icky, I think that you feel a little bit queasy about that, just to be polite about it. And that's not – Icky looked better, as you said, but Icky didn't look like he had solved his problems, in my opinion, either. We look here at the defensive keys. I'll go ahead and I'll drop this Roaring Riot kickoff jam raffle, which, by the way, man, y'all are going to give Panthers Bo or Justin free tickets to this raffle if you don't put your names in the hat, man. Like, y'all are just making it easy on these dudes. Panthers Bo and Justin, I will tell you, you got to stick around, man, through the show, because when we do this raffle here in about probably 20 minutes, I'm going to need you to send me your email and name so that I can forward that along to the Roaring Riot guys so that they can shoot you your tickets. Defensive keys here. 4 sacks in their first game. That's tied for third best of week 1. 14 quarterback pressures at a 35% quarterback pressure rate, 16th, so right in the middle of the field. 2.59 seconds for the average time to pressure. That was 12th best. That speaks to the individual effort, I think, of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and their elite skill set. They allowed one rush of 10-plus yards allowed, which, man, that's going to really like hit home when you see how many 10-yard rushes the Panthers had last week. But one rush allowed of 10-plus yards, tied for second best in the league, which means only one other team had 0. 0.34 yards per contact or before contact allowed. 5th best. Imagine that. Less than half a yard allowed before a defender got to the running back.
That's
scary. That's scary, right? I mean, that is an attacking, disciplined defense that is able to have themselves in that position because you're having to react to a play, right? On the defensive side of the ball, you don't know what is happening until it happens. What they're saying is that they were good enough and coached well enough that they were in position to make that play and make it really quick. 32.5% blitz rate. That's going to be an important figure for us. We'll talk about it when we get to the Panthers thing, because I don't know if you remember, I know it's been a foggy few days, but the Panthers got blitzed into oblivion last week and didn't have a whole lot of answer. That was the 6th most rate, by the way, the Chargers 32.5% blitz rate. They did not deploy a single stacked box, and that's 8 or more defenders within the box. Not a single one. And I want to just revert back for a second to that yards before contact allowed statistic and point to that without a single stacked box look. I mean, Bryson, is that not like impressive in a way that they didn't have to sit there and muddy up and bring extra defenders to control that run game? They were able to do it out of a base formation, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, either the Raiders cannot run the ball for shit,
that part
or
too.
This is an elite run defense that they don't need to stack the box. They don't need the extra help because this defensive line of Ford and Bosa and Mack are handling business. A little scary, a lot scary, actually, for this team going into week 2.
Do you want to kick us off on the Carolina Panthers version of this?
Oh God, yeah. Let's. So prolific offense for Carolina, 10 points per game versus the Saints. We were tied 28th in the league, along with the Raiders, who just played you guessed it, Chargers. We had 193 yards per game, 31st. The offense was not getting movement. We all saw that. Passing yards per game, 135. We was 27th. Rushing yards per game, my God, we were the worst. 58 rushing yards last week. Very unfortunate. The game script played into it, obviously, but that's got to improve if Carolina wants to win any football games. 3.9 passing yards per play, 27th in the league. 2.9 rushing yards per play, 32nd in the league. Worst in the NFL. 55 plays, 23rd, and we passed the ball in 63.6% of the time, which was 7th in the league. We passed the shit out of the ball, and it didn't go for anything except for the second worst amount of yards in the NFL last week.
And you know what? That ties us back to Jared's initial question tonight, right? Where he said, like, hey, what do you guys think about a possible Steve Wilkes approach of 70% running the ball, 30% passing? And I said, I would love to see the inverse of what we saw week 1. Yeah. I would love to see 64% running the ball and 35% passing the ball. And I think that fluctuates, obviously, by matchups and game script. But I think that's a healthy way to look at the game. I don't think that 63.5% passing is a healthy way to look at it. No. Bryson, one thing that stood out to me there while you were reading them out, that 10 points per game tied for 28th. We know 10 is awful. We know that was a terrible offensive performance from this team, right? Like that's not up for debate. It's not up for conversation. Last year, I believe we were 31st at 13.9 points per game. So we made a jump in week 1.
Improvement, baby.
You can call it funny, you can call me fishing for compliments. You can say whatever you want to. But I point that out not to do that necessarily, in all honesty. I point that out to say there was a lot of teams in week 1 that had bad offensive performances.
Yeah.
And not all of those teams were second year or rookie quarterbacks. There were teams. Joe Burrow had a really bad game. Deshaun Watson, man, I mean, I'm not surprised about that. He's way too fixated on being a predator and, never mind. Let's don't go down that path. But I just wanted to let it be known right there what I felt about for. But I do think it's worth noting, though, that other teams struggled. Caleb Williams, the Golden Goose, struggled. And he's got the same thing that people said about us last year. What a support system. What an insulated environment. I mean, he is just set up for immediate success right out of the gate. And guess what? He fell on his fucking face, right? It happens in the NFL. Like, this kind of stuff happens. So, as uncomfortable and disappointing and drink-inducing as week 1 was, I still think that we've got to stay a little bit grounded here, guys. I'm not off the train with the Carolina Panthers. I think that we just had a really bad week, and I think that those numbers that Bryson just beautifully read to you, by the way, like, man, isn't he great at this stuff? Like, this is terrific. I could sit here and just let him read these off for the rest of the night. I'm enjoying this.
Give me a big head.
Well, look, I'm just trying to get you to match mine. I've got a large cranium, dude. So I'm just looking for somebody to get on my level, man. Let's look at some deeper statistics here, right, on the offensive side. Remember earlier when we read how many rushes the Chargers allowed of 10-plus yards? Here's the reason why I brought that up. 0 rushes of 10-plus yards for the Carolina Panthers. 32nd out of 32 teams. And I have a little hyphen there to really point out what I think is the most important thing. The only team in the National Football League to not have a rush of 10-plus yards in the opening week of football.
Is that bad?
I don't think it's good, Bryson. I'm not sure, though, man. I'm not sure, man. Yeah, that's a number, though. It is a number. 0.45 yards before contact per attempt, 26th in the league. 2.45 yards after contact per attempt, 24th in the league. Then I did think that it was worth noting, threw 2 interceptions and had a fumble lost. That's 3 extra opportunities for a disciplined Jim Harbaugh team if we were to travel down that same road. I'm hoping we don't. The Carolina Panthers allowed 4 sacks on 14 quarterback pressures. That's 40% of the time on a quarterback drop back, they were getting pressure. Not terrific. But we also know that the main culprit of that was the nickel blitz, right?
Yep.
Fingers crossed. Can I get into what my all right, Bryson? I've been holding off all time, right? This whole episode, I've been kind of like waiting for the moment to unleash it. All I want from week 2, this is all I want. I want to see answers to obvious concerns. Because I think that when you have a coaching staff that is and I'm going to bring us up here to the forefront so we can see each other while we're doing this thing here. I want to see answers to obvious concerns from a coaching staff that has heart on being very detail oriented. I don't want to deal with one more season of we can't figure out what to do, because that's what we dealt with all last year, man. They said the right things. They acted encouraged. They acted positive, and nothing ever matched on the field. I do want to win. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't care about winning the football game. I do want to win on Sunday, dude. I'm never going to be the fan that's like, I'll take a sentimental win, right? I'll take oh yeah, great effort, team. Brah. Like, no, that's not me. Win the damn football game. But if you're not, or even if you do, prove to me that you can understand, digest, and then implement solutions to make your team a better football team. That has nothing to do with David Tepper and any tinfoil hat stuff that we want to get into. And I'm a fan of a lot of that, right? Like let's rattle it off, man. We could do a whole new episode tomorrow about what I think David Tepper might have his little fingers on. Like, we could do that. But what I want to see is, what does Dave Canales have his hands on? What does Bryce Young have his hands on? What does Ejiro Evero have his hands on? Y'all got to start showing me that. That's what I want to see week 2, period. That is it. I'll jump off my high horse real quick. Real quick in the chat, we did have one question that I wanted to get to, Bryson, because he also asked or reiterated his question. Do you think our defensive coordinator head coaching stock went down? And this kind of goes into what we were just talking about seeing something. Do you think that Ejiro Evero saw his stock take a hit with one game as opposed to his entire resume?
I would probably lean towards no. I think Ejiro Evero, like you mentioned, has put a lot of tape out as a coordinator, and the majority of it is really good with the pieces that he's had to work with the injuries he's had to deal with as a defensive coordinator in Carolina. That defense last year took a beating being on the field a lot and continued to play well throughout the entire season. So I think last week is kind of an anomaly on his resume. You know, we all have. Why were you at that job for only a week? Can you explain to me what happened there? You know, I think Evero is a really good coach. Evero is going to make adjustments. Evero is going to put his players in a position to succeed. I think that his resume says that about him. Now, Dave Canales, we don't know, right? We don't know if that's the case as a head coach. We've seen him, what he's done as a coordinator, and he's had success for sure with different quarterbacks throughout the NFL. But we need to see it. You know, when your head coach comes out and admits that, you know, he didn't have adjustments to the adjustments the Saints made in week 1, and he took that personal. I better see some different things moving forward, whether that be Bryce being allowed to call hot routes or, you know, being able to identify simple, okay, I have 5 people on the left side of the offensive line. I've got 3 blockers. I need to get some people over here. Or just putting your players in an offense in a position to succeed and having those quick passes and screens and getting Xavier Legette involved more when we see him being that spark. So I need to see that from Canales moving forward. But for Evero, no, I don't think necessarily his head coaching, I guess, prowess took a hit last week.
I'm with you. I'm not even going to add to it. I think it's a good thing. Real quick before we get back into, and we'll go through the slides, but Panther Bo, he gets it. He gets what we're just saying right there, right?
Yep.
Can Canales make adjustments and bring the juice? Because we heard it today in the presser, Bryson. He talked about it like, man, we've got good energy. We feel so good about this. And all this stuff is like, We had a great workout day, and this is a big day for getting your bodies right, and all the super positive stuff he's saying. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, and I'm like, Dave, you got trumped, dude. Like, we got mollywopped, and it was so discouraging. The last thing I really want to hear about is how good it's been since. Like, take that juice. I appreciate the juice, right? It's necessary, but take it and just pour it into the locker room. Like, come out and give us some mundane answers, and then go pour all of those Red Bulls that you chugged right into that defensive side or in that offensive side of that locker room. Like, I'm okay with that. All right, finish this up real quick. 14.3% play action. Again, game script was wonky, man. I'm not going to read a whole ton into that. The yards after catch for the team, concerning, because we didn't have good numbers of that last year. If you remember correctly from last episode, we were the only team that had less yards after catch over expectation in the entire league. We're the only one that had a negative mark. So not getting big yardage there is a little bit concerning. What I spoke about earlier, the opposition blitz rate, the Chargers, I believe, if I remember correctly, were the 6th most. We just faced the 5th most. So we can expect to see the Chargers take a page out of that Saints book, because why wouldn't they, right? I mean, they literally just saw what worked. Jim Harbaugh is a smart coach. I think that he's going to look at it. Bryson, take us through the defense real quick.
Yeah, just going through this quickly because it was bad. 47 points per game. We know that was the worst in the league last week. So we are now at 32nd per points per game. 379 yards per game allowed, 24th. So a little bit better there. 199 passing yards per game at 18th, and then 180 rushing yards per game at 29th. They're tied for 29th and tied for 18th. 8 yards per passing play, which was 26, tied for 26th, and 4.9 rushing yards per play, tied for 23rd. There's not really a whole lot of bright spots for this defense. We all know from last week. 62 plays was 12th most, and then 40.3% pass, 30th. So the defense has its work cut out for them, man. In week 2, we need to see improvements in every single area that I just mentioned stats wise. If Carolina wants a chance, doesn't matter how good Bryce plays. Bryce can go out there and put a Green Bay type of performance on the field. If this defense does not make a stop, if they do not improve in run defense, if Justin Herbert goes out and throws for 350, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and I mean, Derek Carr, in my opinion, is not a great quarterback, but Derek Carr looked great week 1. And
terrific. Yep.
Justin Herbert is a much better quarterback than Derek Carr. So the defense has to get better for this team to have a chance to win. And I'm hoping that Evero does make those adjustments and they show some improvement in week 2.
And credit to Clint Kubiak and the offensive system that he implemented in New Orleans, because that is a drastic difference, right? You're taking a San Francisco Shanahan disciple and putting him in. We saw what Bobby Slowick did in Houston. So, like, I don't want to completely discredit New Orleans, but I'm with you 100%, Bryson, where this team coming into new situations and coming into it with a new offensive line, especially the tackles, coming into it without Michael Thomas, which I'm not saying that Michael Thomas is some world beater anymore, but he's familiar. He's reliable. He's the guy that they remember on offense. Jawan Johnson, I don't think was playing, or is Jawan Johnson even on the Saints anymore? Is he injured?
No,
I'm not even sure. He played? Okay.
Yep.
He wasn't a factor. It was a Fabian Moreau or the Foster Moreau. Fabian Moreau. Shit, isn't that the old cornerback for the Raiders? That Freudian slip, man. Sorry, that's my bad, guys. I got a bunch of information in the old skull that just like falls out every now and then. Foster Moreau was the threat at tight end. Alvin Kamara looked like he jumped in, the DeLorean and came all the way back into his prime. I mean, he had Calvin Klein written on the boxers. Like, that was a 1988, man. Like, exactly where he came from. It's one of those things where a good offensive scheme can make players look rejuvenated. It can make them look dangerous again. What we're going to see with Harbaugh isn't necessarily this rejuvenated offense, but it's a focused and disciplined offense. So this defense has a whole new set of obstacles to figure out and to conquer this week, in my opinion. Let's go into a little bit of the other stuff here. Now, Mike, hold on real quickly. Mike Sammy did say tackling was terrible. I would like to see the rookie Wallace more. And he also mentioned that watching the game now, I guess he's watching film review while tuning in. I appreciate you and your multitasking ability, Mike. That is wildly impressive. But he's watching the game now, and he says we were in shotgun for most of the game. Yeah, again, man, I would point to the fact that that game script got pretty much skewed from the moment that we got beat on defense immediately, and then we gave the ball away on offense immediately. Yep. It was almost at that point that I think every single person was so stunned they didn't have a reaction. That's disappointing, but it's the reality of what I saw on the field. But let's get into these stats real quick so that we can get through this. The defensive keys for me, man, we had 1 sack. That was worse than the league. That was worse. Like, there was no other team that had less. There was every other team that had more. Iku Leota is the one guy that had the sack. 5 quarterback pressures. 19.2% quarterback pressure rate on dropbacks. 30th. And that's against, like Bryson was just talking about earlier, that is against Talise Fuaga, who is a lifetime right tackle that the Saints moved in his rookie season to the left side. And with Trevor Penning, who was a left tackle at Northern Iowa, that they moved to the right side. So, like, you had all the reason in the world to find some success in your debut, and we couldn't. That's disappointing to me. 3.8% team sack rate, tied for 26th in the league. I've got Shy Tuttle's picture over this next one because I don't want to, like, blame Shy Tuttle. I don't think that Shy Tuttle is a bad football player. I think that they're playing Shy Tuttle in a position that he has no business playing. Shy Tuttle is not a nose tackle. Never was before he came to Carolina. Carolina just did this really funny thing where they said we didn't need a nose tackle for the Ejiro Evero scheme. But why it's so humorous to me is because a couple weeks before they said that announcement, they had an article written by their staff writer for the Panthers.com that talked about how critical of a position Marquand McCall would be serving as the nose tackle on Evero's defensive scheme.
Yep.
Marquand McCall had something happen, whether it was injury, whatever it was. And, you know, I exchanged a couple of conversations with him last year about it. And he's made what injury, right? Like, he's like, you don't know all the story. I'm not getting into all of that, but they thought it was critical to have this guy. And I was really excited about Marquand McCall. I still am. And to be honest, I think he's on the Raiders now. I would make a phone call about some of these guys, man. Like, bring in a big body. You just lost Derek Brown. Move Shy Tuttle to the outside. He's got no business. He's not ever going to be able to occupy 2 blocks. He doesn't have the anchor for it. That's not what he's built for. He's not a long guy. Like, it's just not in his wheelhouse. So let's move him to a place where he could be effective. If you want to help with the loss of Derek Brown, I think you move Shy Tuttle. That's my opinion on that. 5 rushes of 10+ yards allowed, tied for second most. That doesn't serve well against J.K. Dobbins, who also was absolutely dynamic and explosive. We had a 13.5% team run stuff rate. That's for 24th worst in the league. We blitzed on 42.3%. That's the second most in the league. It's because we couldn't generate pressure any other way. 3.5, little over 3.5 yards after contact per attempt, 24th worst. 59.7% of the opponent's run plays, third highest. They knew that all they had to do was run against us. Like, there was nothing they even thought about, hey, maybe we should switch up the dynamic here. Maybe we should start getting into a little bit more of a balanced approach. No. They looked at it and they said, let's just run the ball down their throat. They can't stop us. I'm worried that the Chargers are going to do the same thing, Bryson.
Yeah. And we blitzed on damn near half of the defensive snaps on the field, and we came away with 1 sack. I mean, what is going on? Why aren't they getting home? I don't understand, man. And that obviously has to improve this week to have any success on that defense.
Yep. And Zach brings it up too. He says we simply don't have the proven pass rushers to produce sacks. They're going to have to bring simulated pressures in order to improve those numbers. Agreed wholeheartedly. Yep. Real quick, before we do the draft or before we do the drawing, I just want to remind everybody, this is what you're going for. 2 free tickets. We're like 2 minutes away from doing this. We're going to give our best bets and then we're going to run it. But I'm telling you right now, it's Panther Bo against Justin. They're going to go like head to head in the Gladiator Arena to figure out who gets these free tickets, which, by the way, I can't wait to have a beer with one of you fellas. That's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so Bryson, let's look at our best bets. And we were able to at least get Curtis input here so that we do have all 3 of ours. Now, again, Go up to signupexpert.com/Panthers. It will show you every sports book in your area, no matter where you are. It will use your location and it will show you what's available to you all in one convenient location in our landing page so that you can go through and find the ones that have the best offering, the best odds. Some of them have bonuses, all kinds of packages, but we make it really easy on you of giving you a one-stop shop. We're essentially the quick trips. If you're from the South, you know the QTs. We're essentially the quick trips of the sports gambling here with the Sign Up Expert. Go in there, get yourself a hot dog, a corn dog, taquitos, 12-pack of Modelo, and then hit the road. You know, like we've got every single thing you need for success or for an awful morning after. You pick it. Curtis, his favorite bet of the week is Lamar Jackson going over 218.5 passing yards. I like it. I do see this is a bounce back room or situation for the Baltimore Ravens. They played the best team in the NFL. They played the Kansas City Chiefs on a Thursday home opener, right? Like that was a tough situation, and they held in. They held in strong, even when they were down. I do think that's a nice situation for him. Bryson, talk to me about your bet.
Yeah, I would love for Lamar Jackson to throw to Mark Andrews. As someone who drafted him in fantasy, so that would be nice. So yeah, my bet, I stuck with the Panthers, man. I went through the player props, went through a lot of different things, and I landed on Chuba Hubbard anytime touchdown in the first half.
Man, I love
feel
that.
like if Carolina has any chance to stay in this game and be competitive, Chuba Hubbard is absolutely scoring a touchdown in the first half. So, and that's plus 375 odds. So that's plus money there.
That's real money. You know?
I think it's a good bet, man. I really do. I think they're going to lean on the run game after the embarrassing lack thereof in week one. And Chuba, of course, is the starting running back. And in the red zone, he's the guy that's getting those goal line carries. So Chuba, anytime touchdown in the first half.
I like it because I think you're right. I think they come out and they have an emphasis on getting them going, which you hope almost. I almost hope the Panthers win the toss, and instead of deferring, they take the ball.
Yeah.
And they say, let's don't let the other team dictate the game script this week. Let's get the ball. Let's go on offense. Let's go on our ground and pound offensive. Let's hand the ball off to Chuba. Let's hand it to Miles. Let's get Mike Boone involved. He's on the 53. Like, let's use this to our best advantage. So I like that bet, Bryson. For me, I'm going to go Derrick Henry over 17.5 rushing attempts at negative 114 odds. This means you wager $114, you win 100. Now, for context sake, you bet 100 on Bryson's wager, you win 375 if that hits. That's the appeal there, man. Bryson is he's a gunslinger. Like, he comes busting through the corral doors and he's ready to go, man. Derrick Henry got, I think, 13 carries last week, and that was in a poor game script with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then Harbaugh, the younger version, came out and said, Derrick Henry is not a guy who's going to get 30 carries every single game anymore. And people started smashing that panic button, which, by the way, talking about smashing the button, Dom money sign 34 in the comments said, smash, like, subscribe. Please do that, guys.
Please.
Like, if you guys have enjoyed the content tonight, which, by the way, I have loved being here with Bryson, and Bryson has felt miserable all night. He's fighting off a cold, and he has delivered his flu game basically tonight, and it's been impressive, man. I think he went for 50. I think it was a fantastic showing. We have 473 people watching the show right now. That's an incredible number. We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and interacting with us. So, like Dom suggests, if you've enjoyed the comments, if you've enjoyed the banter, or if you just want to see what I drink next time, or if you want to see that Bryson shows me out again with his delicious beers, like, subscribe. We're going to be here every Wednesday. Derrick Henry, though, back to it. They play the Raiders. The Raiders just got gashed on the ground by the Chargers. I think that the Baltimore Ravens are in a nice get-right spot. I think that Derrick Henry gets 20-plus touches, rushing attempts. I think that he sees the end zone at least once, maybe twice. That might be a nice little prop bet for you, too. But you can go to FanDuel and find those odds right there. Bryson's odds are on Bet365. Curtis's are on the Dabble app, which the best thing about all of this, though, because that sounds really confusing and hard to navigate, all you have to do is go to signupexpert.com/Panthers, and every single one of those sites will be available to you if it's in your area, and you can click on it. You can find those same odds, and we can all ride on the same horse to Valhalla. All right, Bryson, I think we've come to the part where it is time to do the raffle. So this is between Panthers Bo and Justin, right? Isn't that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Panthers, Bo, and Justin, man, y'all got a 50% chance. It's like a coin toss. Y'all got to feel good about that. Let me get this thing set up. And we're going to go in and we're going to run this random accessorizer for 10 seconds. Okay. We decided on 10 seconds, 1 second for every single point, every single big old point that your Carolina Panthers scored last week. Here's the generator. It's a very nifty little thing. Let me zoom it out for you. House of the Dragon ad down there too. If you're not familiar with that, that's a fun little HBO Max show. Let's do this. You guys ready? Hold on. Can I make this bigger? Yeah, let's make it bigger. All right, go for it. Panther Bo Justin, Panther Bo Justin, Panther Bo Justin. Which one of you boys is going to have a beer with me? Let's see. Justin, big winner.
All right.
There you go. Congratulations,
Congrats,
Justin.
Man.
So Justin, here's what I need from you, man. Shoot me on Twitter, Ricky Bowbody. You can see that name right there. Shoot me your full name and your email address. You could DM it to me, and I will pass that along to the Roaring Riot guys. They will send you your tickets digitally because we live in a digital world now. It is a terrific thing. He says, look at this, man. Look how we're making people's dreams come true, Bryson. Nice. I never win anything. I feel like, what's his name? Fucking Bob Barker right now. Like, come on down. And everybody, don't forget to get your pets spayed and neutered after the show. But this is terrific. Justin, congratulations, man. Let me know when you get there. I'm going to be there. I'm going to probably be just flailing my arms in the wind as the drunk fool that I'll be, listen to the nude party. But let's have a beer together. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Bryson, anything that you want to say to close this thing out tonight?
No, I mean, we appreciate everybody tuning in as always. If you don't already, please subscribe. It really does help us, in the algorithms, get our content out and continue to grow as a channel. Curtis and I been doing it for a while. We brought on Ricky, who was a fantastic addition. Shout out to Ricky. He kind of handled all the graphics tonight for the most part and led the show as a week 2 member of the show and did a great job. So
I feel like I bogarted the whole thing. I feel awful, honestly.
No, man, you led the way, man. But like you mentioned, I'm not feeling great, so I was super appreciative of you doing that. And
no doubt, man.
And I believe Curtis will be back next week as a new father. So if you guys reach out to him, make sure you congratulate him. But yeah, we're excited to hopefully come back next week and talk about a Panthers win.
Hey, Panthers Bo, also, man, holler at me too, because if you really want to go to the kickoff jam, talk to me. Let's see if we can't work something out, man, because you've been nothing but very supportive of Panthers on Tap and me as well. So I would like to make that happen for both of you if you were both the ones that were involved in this. So hit me up, man. We could talk about that. Bryson, thank you very much, man, for powering through. I know that you have felt awful tonight. Everyone give Bryson a round of applause for his efforts. Probably better efforts than what we saw from the Carolina Panthers in week 1. But you know what? We're gamers, man. What we say, you'll see on our field. 494 of you watch this show tonight. You're watching right now. I appreciate every single one of you. Bryson does as well. Curtis does too. And even little Lincoln appreciates all of this, man. He's going to get to hear about how, man, when you were born, Bryson had this flu game and he just really dominated and they held it down for me. Like, he's going to make his dad a legend. So we appreciate every single one of you. Week 2 is on the horizons, guys. Week 1 sucked. We got a chance to win again. Please, the first thing that Dave Canales could do is win at home. Yep. We've won 1 of our last, 11 games at home? Something like that?
Yep.
Get a win at home, man, and you can expedite that process of getting this fan base back. Until next week, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and keep pounding.